Hello everyone, Richard back again here at Calvin Wazoo with another video for you, and it's another installment in Frank Zappa, one album at a time. And this one is about the 14th official release in the Zappa discography, and that is the live recording of Just Another Band from LA. This album marks the end of an era, so to speak. It is the final recording of the Flo and Eddie years, when Howard Kaylan and Mark Volman, formerly of the Turtles, joined the Mothers and was touring with Frank Zappa. A lot of little interesting arcana, perhaps they might even be called Easter eggs, I guess is what they call them now, regarding the cover of the album and the album content in general. It was recorded on August 7th, 1971 at the Pauley Pavilion at UCLA. And interesting is that there were only two mics used, and it was a 4-track recording. So this was done in an effort to try and capture as best as possible what the band sounded like to a live audience. The cover. Start talking about some of the interesting things. Well, first, before I start talking about the cover, let me show you the ones that I have. I have, this is a Reprise. You can see it's on the gold Reprise label. And it's, I looked it up and now I can't remember, but I believe this is a Los Angeles pressing. And so even though it says, Bizarre on the front, it's not on the Bizarre label. This one is on the Bizarre label, but you'll notice that, okay, there's a sticker on here that says May 16th, and also radio station call letters, and the shows up stamped on the record also. So this was a radio copy for playing on the radio. And the interesting thing is somebody at the station put this, they wrote in pen next to the song Billy the Mountain, no airplay. So yeah, don't play this song on the radio. More about that one. Even though this is a a Bizarre label, and because it does have the stamps, I'll be on the lookout for a cleaner, so to speak, Bizarre label copy. Then I also have this German import. So it's on the Reprise label, but you can see how the font is different than on the American release. So from Hamburg is where, I don't know if that was where it was pressed. It just says made in Germany. So those are my 3 vinyl copies. And then I have the CD copy. Now, the CD that was released in, where are my notes here? Here we go. There was a remastered CD released in 2012, and that was taken from the original analog masters. This one I have, however, is the 1990 CD on Ryko disc. All right. So that is the copy that I have. Now, some other things about, I'm going to pull out one of these copies out of my sleeve to show you. All right, so some interesting things about the cover. So we notice here, you've got, the people that were involved in the tour. And in this second plate, here's Howard Kalin, here's Mark Volman, and some of the others. Here's Frank with a dog nose that is reminiscent of how Frank looked on Reuben and the Jets. You'll see the fingers snapping. All right, up there on Reuben and the Jets. There's a reference here to that with the snat by, this is Frank's foot, and a cast, all right? So this concert was in August of 1971, August 7th. The show was continuing to play in a lot of places, and they went over to Europe. And the last show of the tour was December 10th, 1971, at the Rainbow Theatre in London. And this is when Frank got pushed off the stage by a crazed fan. He fell into the orchestra pit. He broke his leg, crushed his larynx. I mean, he was seriously messed up. And this album was not released until 1972. So it was released March of 1972. So, he was in a cast and recovering. And also, it's kind of the catalyst that sends Frank into another musical direction. So anyway, that's the kind of the story there. The other thing is that we notice down here in the lower right, very, very tiny letters which say, you know what, and that's really hard for me to see with my old man eyes, so I am going to refer to a book here. All right, so that text down there in the lower right says, any visual similarity between the cover of this album and the Uncle Meat illustrated booklet, not to mention Reuben and the Jets, is thoroughly intentional and contains 4 secret clues. Well, we already kind of talked about a couple of those clues. So, we've got the snat here from Reuben and the Jets. We've got Frank's, big dog nose from Reuben and the Jets. The other thing is that this is, Calvin, did a lot of the album artwork for Frank. And this is Cal's car. And you can see the license plate says Cal. That's not a reference to it being a California license plate. That's Calvin's car. And it's the same car that shows up on the Uncle Meat booklet. It's the front and the back. It is a 39 Pontiac. And then also Frank's nose isn't, quite as big there. This is the booklet from the brand new Zappa Records reissue. This is an original booklet with the original release. So you can see the color with the newer one here. It's a little bit brighter than the original one here. All right, but that's where the car is coming from. Also, you can see hanging from the rearview mirror, Fuzzy Dice, which is part of the lyrics to Dog Breath. And we've got a car on a giant hamburger bun, which could be a reference to Cruising for Burgers from Uncle Meat. So those are our secret clues. When we look at the back of the record cover, we have, the band here. And then on the inside, we have in the gatefold, a little glare there, but that's Cal Schenkel, working on some illustrations, and then he's got all these drawings and storyboards. Over here we've got Studebaker Hawk from Billy the Mountain. Here we got some images of, Billy the Mountain, because Billy the Mountain was also hoped to be an animated feature to accompany the story. But like many other film animation projects that Frank attempted, it never came to fruition. Something else about the cover here is that we have the font in these letters, or the style of lettering, is what is known as the Pachuco graffiti style. It was used by Latinos, particularly in Southern California, for their wall art and in other graffiti. So the entire album also has this character of a tribute to Latino culture. We have Las Mothers instead of the Mothers. And then at the bottom, we have this Rifa, which is a title that is normally attached after a person's gang name and essentially means, we rule. So strong allusions there. And then also the fact that in a direct homage to this record, when Los Lobos came out with their debut album, they titled it Just Another Band from East LA. So it was a tribute to this particular recording for Los Lobos' 1977 debut. Now, the whole concert set list was huge, all right? So to get an idea of this concert, which was, a couple hours long, and this is basically fit on, all right, it's roughly 45 minutes of music, all right? Side one is 24 minutes long, really. It's quite long for LPs at the time, and then the side two is 20 minutes long. So we're talking, all right, roughly 45 minutes of music on this single album. It was designed initially to be a double album. So even though Billy the Mountain is like 24 minutes, it was a much larger piece. But of course, that did not come through. So the concert, if you would imagine the songs that are here, pretty much all the songs that are on the Fillmore East album, which was released a few months earlier, and then also a few songs from 200 Motels. That was the show. So it was a really major, epic type show. Then we've got the story, Billy the Mountain, which was a working concept. And as I said, initially they were going for a double album set in which the current side two of this release was going to be side one. Then sides 2 and 3 were going to be Billy the Mountain. It was going to cover 2 entire album sides, and then side 4 would be including, for the most part, the Fillmore East, the music of the Fillmore East show. But again, this did not come to be. So Billy the Mountain is very heavily edited. There are many big parts, instrumental parts to some degree, but that were just, and then other little bits here and there, hacking the song down until they could get it into something that could be fit on one side. It also has many, many references to local geographical locations. All right. So, because this concert was in Los Angeles at UCLA, a lot, you can hear the references in some of the other songs too, to local, places. So, for example, the mention of the pools of old poison gas and obsolete germ bombs, being located next to Watts, which was the predominantly African American part of Los Angeles, and fitting in with institutionalized racism, something that Frank alluded to quite a bit in a lot of his material. This cesspool of germ bombs and nerve gas was next to Watts, so that if anything happened, this terrible mix of poison, it's just going to blow over Watts and nobody cares. So, all these little inside political stories that he was slipping in, which Frank often would say went over the head of most of his listeners. Then there are others that talk about, Ralph's, the grocery store. So, but when they would go to different locations during the tour, these locations that are mentioned in what you hear on the album would be different. They would be localized. So maybe the gas disperses, instead of over Watts, it disperses over vast quantities of the Midwest, or, depending on where they were playing. Interesting also, you've got that part in there where it's Jim Pond speaking. He's got that basso voice, and he's talking about this, the recent narcotics crackdown. And then he goes through this list of 20 Southern California cities, all real places. That's another section, depending on where they were playing. Jim Pons would modify that to mention local towns in the vicinity of wherever it was they were playing. Now, Billy the Mountain is, it's an epic song. It's very much like an epic tale. Story of a mountain who has been posing for postcards all these years, is getting a royalty check finally. So he and his wife, Ethel, who is a tree growing off of his shoulder, they decide they're going to go on a vacation. And so they start traipsing, across the country. And then along comes Studebaker Hawk, this archetype of superhero person, very much, I think, being modeled after Jerry Lewis, excuse me. And so Studebaker Hawk is pursuing him because Billy didn't register for the draft. This was 1971. All right, so the Vietnam War and the draft were very much a thing going on at the time. And Frank, in that vein, was very political, working to get people registered to vote, and also talking, about the draft. And so there's all these references that are going on through the song, and then at the end, the ending of the song is this huge F-bomb that gets dropped on the crowd, that a mountain is something that you don't want to F with, don't F around with Billy or Ethel. So in Virginia Beach, the band got warned to not say the F word during the show. And Flo and Eddie ignored that warning. And so after the show, they were arrested on an obscenity charge, I believe. And but the police were nice enough to let them go back on stage to do the encore. So now there are reports that when they were in Boston, any of the spots in the song in which the F-bomb was used, they rewrote into whatever silly, innocuous things. And it's not clear that that was done because they received a similar warning from police in Boston, or if they were just practicing the delivery, omitting the use of the F word in the event that they encountered another warning, wherever they played. So it's unsure if it was a rehearsal or if they got another warning like they did down in Virginia Beach. Truly, Billy the Mountain is an incredible piece that varies through, it picks up little jingles from commercials, from other songs, and it's just the way everything is all put together. To hear the entire story, which was probably close to 3/4 of an hour or longer, would have been truly, truly amazing. Because even the edition that we get here is truly amazing, but it is significantly edited to a much shorter piece that could fit on any side or on one side. Then we have the song "Call Any Vegetable," which was first released on Absolutely Free. Now, despite some of the things I may mention about the song, some people initially think "Call Any Vegetable" is a reference to literal vegetables or to marijuana, smoking pot. But that's not what the vegetables are in the song. Frank has said in other places that the vegetables are people, the people who don't even try to think for themselves and who basically are led by the nose by politicians. So, the whole idea of befriending a vegetable, go out there in the vegetable kingdom and make friends with a vegetable, is not an effort to encourage better diet or even recreational drug use. It was to befriend these people and help them understand what is going on in the country so that they can make intelligent choices. Now, in the original, on Absolutely Free, there's the line, standing there shiny and proud by your side, holding your hand while the neighbors decide, why is a vegetable something to hide? That got changed, not by Flo and Eddie, to holding your joint while the neighbors decide. And this, again, because of the song, a lot of people were misunderstanding it and thinking it was about pot, smoking dope. And so when that is mentioned in the song, some people are saying, holding your joint while the neighbors, they interpreted, okay, holding a joint, that you're smoking, get high together. But the other reference that definitely fits in with the whole Zappa schema is that, joint is also a slang term for penis. So holding your penis while the neighbors decide, it's, so you can take it either way. So it wasn't Flo and Eddie, but it was Roy Collins who the year before during live shows changed that lyric, which stuck, changed it from holding your hand to holding your joint. Then we get into the song, Eddie, Are You Kidding Me? Which is a total reference to a business known as Zacharial, a clothing store that was on Wilshire Boulevard in the Miracle Mile of Los Angeles. And we've got Jim Pons also doing the basso voice, and it's a Flo and Eddie song pretty much all the way through. And, the double knits and all that. Great, great, great fun song. Then comes Magdalena, which is, some people are like really with Magdalena because its primary subject matter is incest. And Frank with the Mothers on Absolutely Free also. There's the song Brown Shoes Don't Make It, which is mostly about local politicians, but there are references to incest in that song as well. So it's not a topic that was unfamiliar to Frank, and one that he was very willing to exploit. And the origin of the song is kind of interesting. It was Howard Kalin came up with the lyrics kind of on the spur of the moment while he and Frank were hanging out in a motel in Canada, because Magdalena's father is a maple syrup king, making maple syrup for the pancakes overland. Do you have any idea what that can do to a man? So he came up with the lyrics and he showed them to Frank. He was a bit diffident. Howard Kalin was a bit diffident about the content, but Frank said, no, I like this. This is great. He allegedly said incest is funny. And which, again, I think people can have, you can interpret what was meant by that comment, because certainly incest is not funny. But to Frank, people who did these things, whether it was incest or other really strange and self-destructive behavior, to him it was funny in the sense that people could be so twisted by by whatever environment that they were in, that they would engage in this type of activity. So when he said that, or he's at least quoted, according to Howard Kalin, that's what he said. I don't see that as him agreeing with or supporting or just not taking seriously that issue. But the song Magdalena is brilliant. It is probably one of the most amazing compositions because of the dynamics of the music and the lyrical content working off of each other. You have this desperate man pleading with his daughter in this twisted, distorted sexual assault of his own daughter. And he's like this whimpering, simpering shell of a man. But then it's also combined with this orchestration, this brilliant orchestration of music that lifts it up. It's like you have this horrible lyrical content and this beautiful music working together, and it is pulled off so absolutely brilliantly. I need to read this passage. This was written by a music critic, Eric F. Clark, in his publication that I'm not sure if it's a book or if it's a magazine reference, but the title of the work is Subject, Position, and the Specification of Invariance in Music by Frank Zappa and P.J. Harvey. This was published in 1999. And what Clark said about Magdalena is the tone of the lyrics is often in conflict with that of the music. Examples are the Latin interlude, where the happy banality of the music contrasts with the pleading and lustful lyric, or the verses where the ludicrous and wooden music, with the exception of the music that accompanies the name Magdalena, contrasts with a lyric that continually veers off into lust and fantasy. The result is the slippery and unsettling ambivalence that characterizes the song. Two sources of information, words and music, specify incompatible psychological states. The subject position is a complex and distracting mixture of ridicule, melodrama, smutty fun, and real or simulated arousal. So, yeah, it's the content, lyrical content is just prurient, but the song is really, it's so fun because of the way the music works together and sometimes even against the lyric content. So then we are going to come up with Dog Breath, which was originally released on Uncle Meat. And the very cool things about this is that all the lyrics in the song, when they're repeated, are the same except for the opening line. So at first it kind of opens around, Frank was explaining this in an article that was, I think it was from a radio episode from an LA show back in '69. But he said the interesting thing was, all right, the words are all the same except for the words that precede karucha. Like the first time it's primer mi karucha, and that's a logical concept because a person primers his car. So we take advantage of the fact that people don't really hear what they hear. And the next time around, the words are fry me a karucha. And then it's buy me a karucha. And then it's fly me a karucha. So each time they would, re-sing the verse, that opening line, in the verse, they would modify it a little bit. And for the majority of people listening, they wouldn't hear these differences. They would hear what they wanted to hear, what they thought they were hearing. Kind of the way that Manfred Mann's cover of Blinded by the Light, the song by Bruce Springsteen, is so mangled that you think that, he's blinded by the light wrapped up in a douche, when that's not what it is. So, people thinking what they're hearing is, something else than what is actually being sung. So Frank was deliberately playing on that notion with the song. And then the guitar solo at the end is, really, really amazing, brilliant guitar solo. But for some people, it is perceived as being ironic. Again, this fellow Eric Clark was mentioning that the guitar solo seems to demand both to be taken at face value, as in it is heartfelt, and to be heard as ironic. After the falsetto vocals and melodramatic gestures, very much in the style of Magdalena, which preceded in the first half of the track, the solo sounds initially more direct and more genuine. But while it has some of the hallmarks of Zappa's own idiosyncratic guitar style, a spiky and angular melodic shape, and extensive use of the wah-wah pedal, it also draws too heavily on the stereotypical conventions of rock guitar solos, and in too explicit a fashion to be taken entirely seriously. You know, when I first was reading about that, I thought, you know, well, I just think it's just a killer shred. So I'm not sure if I get that irony. Maybe other people do, but yeah, I don't think I really get that kind of irony. But anyway, that's the 14th release in the Zappa catalog. Just Another Band from LA. Marks the end of the Flo and Eddie years. I mean, I like all the material in the Flo and Eddie years, but this album, I like this one probably the best. It is an amazing, amazing record. And I don't listen to it that often because that portion of Zappa's catalog, the Flo and Eddie years, is not necessarily my favorite time or favorite portion of his catalog. But nonetheless, this record jams. It just really kills it. So I hope that was interesting to you, and I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope to see you around again in future episodes on this channel. So remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.